Okay. Never quite sure when it happens, but it's probably happening. So I'll just lay it out now. We got a special edition of Hire, Lead, and Chill today, Tuesday. We normally hit it at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for hopping on. We get a few people that go live. I don't know. We get a decent amount at night that go live, anywhere as little as maybe 30 upwards, depending on what's happening. Maybe 100 people that might join us. I don't know how we'll do it noon, so it's a little bit different. But by the end of a couple of days, we normally get maybe 1,500 people or so on average that take a look at us. So I appreciate all that. We've got a podcast that goes out to, and YouTube and some other things. So Hire, Lead, and Chill, where we talk about the 3 pillars of business success, which is all about, as you guys know, I'm a little bit biased on recruiting. That's hire. Leadership, that's lead. And culture is all about chilling out. So if we can figure out how to hire, lead, and chill, recruit, lead, and figure out our business culture, from what I see, and I've been blessed enough to talk to and meet with thousands of business owners around the country over the last several years, those are the 3 main things I see that help people increase the odds of success in their business. But I think, as importantly, they also tend to be the most at peace when they're running their business, which is real important. So let me talk very briefly about some things that we have going on at Blue Skies Recruiting and some things we're working on. And then I'm going to bring a very special guest on here in a minute or two to talk about some job board stuff, some recruiting stuff, and get into this. Before I introduce Chris here, for Blue Skies Recruiting, we're working on a new dashboard for our clients where you're going to be able to see very user-friendly, very interfaced with some numbers with your application flow, new hires, interviews, things like that, cost per acquisition cost per employee. So we've got some really cool things lined up with that. We've got a couple different things we're working on. We also will have some KPI stuff that will be tailored to our clients' needs. So that's just a whole mess of things. We're hoping to get that up and running by the end of June. So we're deep into it. We're going to roll it out to a few clients that have helped us put it together. We've got all kinds of things going on with that. There's some goofy things going on with Google. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit and see what we're up to with Indeed. Indeed's, and Indeed is one of those we love-hate relationship with Indeed, as you all know. We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I can't remember who the guest is, but we'll be getting back on track. But so that's what's going on with Blue Skies Recruiting. Still, low unemployment, 3.4% unemployment. Haven't seen that. Well, we saw it in January, but we haven't seen it prior to that since like 1969. So we're still in a very competitive labor market. I don't know that that's changing very much, but we've got things figured out. There's a lot of artificial intelligence stuff that we'll talk about next Tuesday. We talked a lot about that last Tuesday too, but that's enough of us. Let's bring in our guest. Chris Russell is my guest. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well, Shawn. I like the whole chill vibe that you got going on there. So
all right, love it. So just to give a background to the audience with our relationship, we really don't know each other that well. We've emailed quite a bit over the years, and I've watched a lot of your things, and I certainly know about your expertise on a lot of things you're doing. But we, just so the audience knows, we haven't prepped 1 second for this. It's not like let's put this together. I know stuff's going on. I want to get that information out to my audience, and I know that there's nobody that I know that's more of an industry specific expert when it comes to job boards than Chris Russell. So Chris, tell my audience a little bit about yourself. While you're doing that, I am going to share to some other groups so we can get the word out.
Sounds good, Shawn. Appreciate that intro. Chris Russell, RegTech Media. My job essentially today is to inform the modern recruiter out there. And I also do a bunch of consulting around the job board space and creating technology vendors on the marketing side. But basically I cover the industry, Shawn, and help uncover technology that's out there and help recruiters and organizations try and cut through the clutter a bit, understand what that technology can do for you from a hiring standpoint and recruiting standpoint. And that's kind of my day job. So I really enjoy it. I've been in the space for over 25 years, I think now. going back to 1999 when I launched my first local job board here in Connecticut, where I live. And I've learned a lot about online recruiting over those 20 plus years. And it's been a fun ride, and it's been a really interesting industry to work in as well. Things are always changing, and helping connect employers with talent is something that's pretty big passion of mine. So
Awesome. Yep. So I can tell you just from things I know about Chris, and some of the things I've learned from him, and he's been very grateful with his time over the years with me, and just helping me understand some things a little bit about job boards and some interesting things that happen in the industry changes. 1999 was there. You must have been one of the first in the country with a job board back then, man.
yeah, it was pretty. I was working at a web design firm, and we had built a site for a staffing firm, and the guy wanted to be able to post jobs on his website. And that's where the idea generated from, essentially. So after that project, I said, oh, I could start a local job board for my area where I live. And I did that. This is right during the .com boom. So I had good timing on my side.
Yeah.
And I kind of took off right away. And then from there, there it's history. So
with let's talk a little bit about and job boards in general, and sort of a general landscape before we get into the weeds with Google or Indeed or any of that. What are you seeing that's maybe changed the most over, say, the last 10 years or so with job boards? And, I know one thing for sure is that there are a ton more job boards out there than there was 10 years ago. That's for sure.
yeah, the maturity of the industry is there, right? And there's literally there's multiple job boards for literally every niche and vertical you can think of out there, Shawn. And that's been one of the big changes I've seen in the last 20 plus years, is that it's kind of hard to break into the job board space a little bit depending on what industry you're going after. But and beyond that are things like the aggregation that's happened in the last 15 years from the likes of Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and those guys. And jobs are everywhere now, Shawn. You really can't escape them. They're on Google, they're on multiple job boards, and they're everywhere now. It's amazing.
Especially in the tight labor market we've been in. It's just the supply and demand is just completely upside down with,
Yep.
With labor. And that is the hottest commodity and asset. And it has been for a number of years now. When we first started recruiting for ourselves and clients, I remember I never mentioned the word boosting or sponsoring. You can get free stuff from Indeed left and right. And it was just, the tough part then was, Shawn, I don't have time to go through 700 applications and that was free. But I mean, that was Indeed's free stuff. And I often wondered, how are they staying in business with this? I never mentioned boosting and sponsoring back then, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Well, that's all I talk about today, because we've really had and keeping in mind, Chris, that our niche is sort of the home service business, where, if you're probably 85% of our recruiting is that technician that goes out to the customer, whether it's a business or a residential client, and they're installing, repairing, or cleaning, or doing something out there, turning wrenches or something. That's most of our business. So, a lot of small businesses didn't have a budget for recruiting. They didn't need to have a budget. And all of a sudden, they're taking money from marketing budgets and throwing it into recruiting budgets because the game's changed. Are you seeing anything in the labor market that would indicate that there's going to be any softening of that, and we're going to get back to the good old days of, we won't have as much problems finding employees, or is that not a reality?
I don't think it's a reality, Shawn. I think that there's a lot of underlying factors that are affecting the job market these days, from everything from immigration to just a lack of available talent out there. We're not making more. We're making less workers these days. People aren't having as many kids as they used to. And so I think for the next foreseeable future, whether that's 5, 10 years, it's going to be a tight labor market. It's just no way around it. I don't see any magic bullet here to solve that solution. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I talked to a partner of mine, and he said, same thing. We talk about the population growth is just not what it used to be. like you said, the immigration. We also have a lot of independent people now.
Yeah, the gig economy is another thing no one's talking about that
Yep.
affects how companies can recruit, because today, if you want to, you can go and get a job on Uber or DoorDash and make money off of that, right? And that's never been the case before. And so that's another aspect of recruiting that you have to compete with now as an organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think people, underscore that enough when we talk about recruiting, just these types of changes. The gig economy is huge. The, independent workers, overseas VAs, we're taking more jobs over there, and you would think that would help. But what is not going to help is the niche I'm in. We can't hire somebody from the Philippines to come over and hammer nails for us over here. That's never going to change.
Right.
And that's especially in that blue collar and hospitalities like that. Hospitality's been a really tough industry to recruit in, because we can't go have VAs and cheaper labor and that sort of thing. And, it's an American job here. When you're out there, your feet on the ground type of businesses, you're not, that's a whole different ballgame, and that's just going to be tougher and tougher and tougher to recruit. And I think it's kind of a good thing, because just like a free economy, it's increased wages. It's one of the things we talk about on our show is leadership and culture. One of the way that we find great employees and keep them is having great leadership and great culture. So a lot of the small businesses, we're really trying to work on that. You mentioned niche job market stuff. I just crack up sometimes when I see the niches out there. I like some of those niches, like veterans. You've got college students, things like that. We're not really into IT stuff and technology stuff, and I know that's a lot of your background. But can you talk a little bit about those niche industries, like maybe I'll get specific with student job boards where you can find students, college students or high school students, maybe some things like that. Veterans, where veterans might go. We've got a lot of veteran-owned companies that are clients of ours. Can you talk a little bit about those niches?
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to veterans, or sites like vetjobs.com, it's been around forever. I think even military.com has a job board on there as well. And there's a whole bunch of other just smaller players in that space. If you search stuff like veteran job boards, hiring veterans, you should come across some of those sites out there. When it comes to the college students of the world, there are sites like collegerecruit.com. My friend Stephen Rothberg, who runs that out of Minnesota, has been around for a number of years. There's collegegrad.com. There's wayup.com, which is a pretty good college place to find college grads and students as well. Experience.com is another one as well. So lots of ways to get college students these days from those various different organizations. What is,
if kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, so I apologize. I'll preface it with an apology. What is maybe one or two most, I don't know if you want to call it funny or unique, or you wouldn't believe this niche job board that you've been a part of or about out there?
Oh, there was, there's been some funny ones over there. There was one, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It might have been something like, something about hell jobs, whatever. It was about like vice jobs, like working in a strip club or
right,
stuff like that. Right. It was kind of funny. I don't remember the name of the site. That must have been about 10 years ago when I saw that thing. But there's a few things out there like that. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I remember having a demo with a client, and I can't remember where, that was really talking about interesting, a different lifestyle than I'm accustomed to, sort of an underground type of culture. And they were recruiting for that. And I'm thinking, man, that would be an interesting job board, but it's just not part of my value system to have that job board. But I think maybe if I could find somebody it would be a real interesting one.
Yeah. I've been helping a lot of staffing firms launch their own job boards lately.
Is that right?
Trend that I've had with my consulting. They see that Indeed's getting more expensive and they want to control more of their ads on their own ad spend. And a job board makes sense for a lot of them because they have an existing audience of seekers they can tap into to drive traffic to it. It helps them to, they can get on Google for jobs, things like that. And I think it just makes a business sense standpoint, just to help to augment their existing staffing business with their own job board. They really, if they're experts in a certain niche somewhere, help a nursing staffing company launch their own nurse job board, for example, things like that. So it makes sense in some cases.
Yeah. What's and that's one of the other reasons too, I think, that job boards are exploding. One is the labor market's difficult. So people are starting job boards that's a real good example as to why. What's the difference, just for the audience sake, of putting something on your web page and have a couple jobs listed, or a career page even on your website, versus a job board?
Well, a job board, you could potentially make money with it over long term. It may help to attract more people to the site overall versus just having them on your career page or whatever it is. In that respect, and it also requires, if you do have a job board, it requires marketing too. So you should be prepared to market that board online and understand how to do that. So internet marketing skills come in play there, and some companies just don't have that. They don't have that ability or will to do something like that. So that's kind of the difference.
Okay. Let's talk, let's get into a little bit more about Indeed and Google and what Google's up to.
Oh, yes.
So Indeed, starting there, Indeed, I travel maybe 10 times a year or so, somewhere in there, and I'll go to associations and I speak at conventions and things. And one of the things I typically will be heard saying about Indeed is something like this, which I had to revamp this a little bit. So I'll tell you what I used to say, and then I got called out on it. So this is now what I have to say.
Okay.
And that is, Indeed is like my 16-year-old girlfriend. And so now I have to say, when I was 16. So not my 16-year-old girlfriend. I don't have a 16-year-old girlfriend. When I was 16 and had a 16-year-old girlfriend, Indeed is that. I loved her. I hated her. I couldn't live without her. I didn't want her near me. Indeed is like that. There's this love-hate relationship. On the business end of it, I think they have a fairly good experience for the job seeker side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Click a button and you can apply to 100 different jobs, and that's nice for the job seeker to be able to do. I think they are horrible, absolutely horrible, how they treat small businesses, though. Flagging for no reason, and then what's the explanation? I get 3 different answers, 5 different answers. I'm trying to help clients. They just the actual platform itself looks different from client to client to client to client. It changes all the time. It's not, I think they're trying to be a virtual full-time recruiting department, and they frown on recruiting businesses, I think. I've had clients that just have a very difficult time using Indeed. And then, of course, Indeed's rolling out different pricing models that they've rolled out, which was an absolute disaster in my view. I know some people didn't mind it. Most of my clients could not stand it. It was much more expensive. So they rolled out, and they went from pay per click, and you can get all these, set a daily budget and a monthly budget. It turns on, and once you hit the budget, it stops. You didn't have to worry about turning it on and off. They went from that business model or pricing model to pay per application pricing model. And in some instances, I couldn't believe how much they were charging per application.
Yeah.
Just for a house cleaning person and a window cleaner, ranged from like as low as maybe $18, somewhere in there, $15, up to $60, $70 for an application.
Wow.
Now that's absurd.
Yeah.
That's absurd. Now, the other thing with it is if you were not working over the weekend and you'd have to answer within, I think, 2 or 3 business
72 hours. Yeah. That's
right.
72-hour rule. Yeah.
Now that's an insane. How is that customer service? Right.
It's not.
So talk a little bit about what you know about Indeed and the sort of maybe the history that you might know, or whatever that's valuable that we can learn from.
Yeah. So I knew Indeed when they were like 10 people. Shawn. So they're headquartered here in Stamford, Connecticut. And I was one of the first customers with my job board company.
Really?
Believe it or not, yep. So I was, I was paying them $2,000 a month for many years
Wow.
to send me traffic. And then they shunned the job boards, the ones who built them, and kicked us off basically. And they kicked off, staffing firms from having any free listings. And
Yep.
they've been slowly, courting just the employer as their main client. And today they're in flux today, Shawn. I'm on record as saying we've seen peak Indeed from an overall just brand share, mind share standpoint. And they have less employees now, of course. There's been a little bit of brain drain there. But yeah, everything you just told me about Indeed is what I've heard as well. So I can concur with that. And you're right that the SMBs are the ones that are really hurting from all these changes, I think.
Yes.
The enterprise companies don't really care. They've got massive budgets anyway, and they just throw money at Indeed and get that traffic. But what really hurts is small businesses when it comes to these horror stories we've been hearing about. I hate the fact that Indeed likes to dictate how you have to recruit.
Thank you.
That's just not customer friendly, right? What you're making it harder for your customers to do business with you.
Yes.
And you roll out all these weird changes and rules, right? And it's just, to me, it's a nightmare. And I just wish they did better at that. I mean, and I think they're such a big company now. They're a big giant corporation essentially, and that's what happens when when you're 20 years old and you just care about the money rolling in now these days. So that's what I've seen, and I don't think it's going to get any better time soon. But they're not going away though. They're still a huge behemoth in the market, and that's the love-hate relationship. They still have the traffic, and if you want clicks and applies, you need to use them at some point. So
we've had a representative tell us at one point that, listen, we're the biggest and baddest, and it's just that way, and we know that. And to have that, and we've never gotten grouchy with them. We've just been, tell us tell us, explain to us, and we want to adhere to whatever your rules are. The problem is you change them like it seems weekly, and then you won't explain them. And then when we have questions, I get 3 different answers. I don't know where to turn any longer. That's the relationship Indeed had with us for a while.
Yeah, they completely botched that rollout of this PPA. I mean, they shouldn't have done it so quickly. They should have done it slowly over the course, like a full year.
Yes.
Educated the market on why they're doing it, how they're doing it, explained over and over again to their small business customers that this is how it's going to work from now on. They did not do that. They just rolled out the changes, lickety split, and expected that people were going to follow. That did not happen. They got tons of pushback. Their chairman of the board is quoted saying on their earnings reports that yes, this has been a challenging rollout, he called it. And it's all self-inflicted. I mean, they did it to themselves. And that hubris you mentioned is going to be their downfall eventually if they keep that up. So
yeah, I definitely were aligned, because I've been talking about that now for months. I think it was at the end of March of this year, they laid off something like 2,200 people at a time where they should be flourishing and hiring more and growing and expanding, like ZipRecruiter has. With coupled with the fact that their revenue was down, their sponsored job revenue was down like 35%.
30%,
right? 30% from last year. Those are not good things in a market that seemingly you would be flourishing in. There's something obviously going wrong with customer service, if that's it. And here's something that that we've talked about is, I remember, some of the biggest names on the other end of the equation, on the demand side of things with clients, right? They're in the graveyard right now, like Home Advisor, Thumbtack, Angie's List has completely, those were, it used to be Service Magic, and I think Home Advisor bought them out, right? Remember old Service Magic back in the day? Those were really good companies that I held back 20 years ago. I would use Home Advisor and it worked. Thumbtack worked for about 3 months, and then Home Advisor started selling to 20 of your competitors and we're not servicing you properly. They're in the graveyard. I don't know of anybody in our industry that uses those platforms anymore. And I'm thinking, if Indeed does not wake up and start servicing their clientele better, there's a graveyard that they're going to be headed towards.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. They've never done a good job with small businesses, in my opinion. And it's
And they seem to have the equation doesn't match. I mean, I think it's the best job board for blue collar type of workers. You know, it's the biggest, certainly. What do you know about ZipRecruiter? What are they up to nowadays?
ZipRecruiter's been pretty quiet lately, which concerns me a little bit because they're number two, they're number two in the market, and we need them as a buffer against the Indeeds of the world. They're a public company now. I'm not sure if that's the best long-term thing for them because of that, but I would love to see them, start buying stuff like, buying Career Builder, for example, and getting bigger a little bit and buying up some of the smaller players to help keep that moat there between them and Indeed. Yeah, they've been quiet lately, so I'm a little worrisome about that. They had some layoffs as well. Just recently, I think I forget the numbers, but they're close to $1 billion company themselves. ZipRecruiter, I think they're 800 million, something like that, in the last year, and they saw some pretty big growth during the pandemic and stuff. The major job boards are definitely hurting right now from just a sales standpoint. I talked to some of the CEOs of some of these companies, and they're saying that companies the enterprise companies especially they're holding back right now, just waiting to see what the economy is going to be doing. Hopefully maybe later this year we'll start to see a little bit of a untightening there from pretty advertising standpoint. But a couple other companies to mention too for blue collar work: jobcase.com, which is a pretty big hourly job board that you may not have heard of before. Snag a Job. Even stuff like I know I think there's cleaning jobs on like care.com as well, Shawn. That site is starting to take off a bit as well in the last couple of years. Yeah,
they're popping up quite a bit. Care.com, I see that quite a bit popping up on Google for jobs and some other places. Yeah, and Indeed had bought out a couple companies. It was at Glass, not
they bought Glassdoor. They bought Simply Hired.
Yeah.
Resume.com at one point.
Yeah.
They've done a great job at acquisitions over the years and taking out competition. And I want to see other companies do that, like Zip, as well. It's a smart move.
Yeah.
They took Simply Hired and just backfilled it with their own jobs and basically had two job boards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And Glassdoor seemed to be more of a branding branch of it, or they were trying to sell us on some branding stuff more than direct recruiting type of job board. That's what the representative was telling us, at least.
Yeah, it's more about the reviews, but even that site has been diminishing in its value, I think, over the last couple of years. It's just not as big in the mind share of job seekers these days. But
do you stay informed as much on different platforms that aren't necessarily job boards? So social media, Facebook had some changes there for a minute. They were getting sued like crazy for sexual discrimination and age discrimination, and which is
I wish the Facebook job board still existed today, because they could have been an excellent source of traffic for especially blue collar stuff.
For sure.
I had a client, I think, in the hotel job board business, and he had tapped into their API. He was getting some great traffic off of that. And they just gave it up, and they changed their advertising rules so that you couldn't target, a certain type of demographic with a job ad, which to me was that ad system was awesome for targeting the exact people you knew you could hire.
Right.
And that's gone away now. And that's a shame, because it was a great tool.
It was. I mean, there's still some value there, but nothing like it was for sure. You're right. What about the old, we see Craigslist work in some parts of the country, and in other parts it's still, I remember 20 years ago, it was really, it was working pretty good for most everybody. And then they started charging, and then the value started going down.
Facebook Marketplace is a big reason because of that. I think they took a lot of the market share away from Craigslist. In the other sectors that Craigslist offers, and even when Facebook had jobs too, that was another hit to Craigslist. But yeah, they're still around. They work well in certain markets, like you said, and they're still like at one point they were like $1 billion company, and
It's crazy.
with like 100 people there or something like that. It's some
Yeah, I know.
ridiculously small amount of people because it was
Oh,
all word
Craig
of
made a
mouth.
lot of money, whoever Craig is.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. I've
And,
met
and
Craig once. Yeah,
did you really?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
No, I'm on LinkedIn connected with on LinkedIn at least and stuff. I think
Now,
maybe I've messaged him too.
the Craigslist hasn't, I don't think, changed hardly a thing from day
Nope.
one, right?
Nope. Still the exact. Looks like it's 1999.
Everything. It's like a classified newspaper
Yeah.
of the digital world. That's really what they kind of are. It's crazy. What about other social media? Do you stay informed on anything like the TikToks and all that other stuff, or Instagram or any of that? There's actually a couple recruiters out there that's what they use as social media. I don't know all that much about what they're up to, and if there's some scraping they're able to do somehow or another, or how are they doing it? Just building relationships, or what do you know about that?
I think Instagram and TikTok, they're good for branding yourself as a recruiter out there and getting advice, things like that. It's not good for jobs. Although TikTok had a TikTok resume experiment last year. I think it was last year or the year before, where they asked their users to create like a little TikTok resume of themselves, basically a video.
Yeah.
And then you could submit it to some certain companies like Chipotle and stuff like that. They had a little job board on there, which it must have been just more of a PR stunt or whatever, but
Yeah.
It was interesting to see that. And you could hashtag your little video with TikTok resume and get seen by companies and
Right.
admired. So that was interesting.
That's interesting. That's interesting. What about before we get into Google here a little bit? What do you see outside of what we'll talk about with Google briefly? What do you see happening in 10 years, maybe with job boards, and what blue collar, smaller businesses might be able to take advantage of to help them stay playing, because playing with the big boys. And I say that because when you own a window cleaning company, a construction company, a roofing company, and it used to be your primary job market out there was in competition with pretty much those types of businesses. Now you're competing against Amazon warehouse, billions and billions of dollars. Even Walmart's paying $20. They're not minimum wage anymore. So all these big corporations are now kind of competing with our labor market, and and warehousing has become huge during COVID. Trucking was still huge. All those sort of things are competing with our job market now. That's hard to compete with and leverage what you need to do, because you don't have the tools and resources that Amazons of the world have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to make your job marketing personal, and try and stand out above the others, I guess. I mean, you got to make it easy to apply to your jobs, of course, things like that. I think that, you use a tool like, ChatGPT to write a compelling job listing, right? I think that's an easy thing to do today that basically anybody can do. I just helped a roofing company with some of that. And I use ChatGPT to actually help craft this roofing sales job. I augmented it myself as a human, but it gave me a nice kind of outline to work from.
Yep.
And put them on Breezy HR, a little simple SMB ATS recruiting software. And they have some links in there with some job boards. So they're getting some free applications rolling in, within a day of me launching that site for them. And so there are tools out there to help you do this stuff. It's just kind of a matter of finding them and doing the work. Yeah, just, making yourself different, having, of course, good benefits, good pay, is basically, table stakes at this point. And, being a good leader, like you said, Shawn, and making it a good place to work. I mean, nobody wants to work for a-holes out there, right?
Right.
So many of those. And if that's the culture at your organization, good luck.
Right.
In the next few years. But, it's a tough thing. I think AI is going to play a big part in the future of job search. I just wrote a post about that on rectakemedia.com. Whether that could mean that maybe the search box is going away. So maybe you're going to be using just a chat bot to search for jobs in the future. Things like that could be coming. So I'm interested to see where that goes. And it's going to be a lot of changes in the next couple of years because of that.
Yeah, I think it's happening very quickly too. It went from, it seemed overnight once GPT came out. It was like an overnight 1 million subscribers in like a day or two or whatever it
Yep.
was. And that's insane speed.
This is like the beginning of the internet,
exactly,
this
exactly.
point in time here. It's a new,
I mean, you listen to like
right?
experts like Elon Musk and the way he talks about it and the way his mind work is just astounding to me, and the things that he visions, his visionary detail is just crazy. What do you think AI is going to do? I mean, how? Besides, we all can hop on GPT and some others, and we can come up with job titles, descriptions, procedures, and write out some training stuff and manuals and things like that. The one thing that I always try to do is I try to look through the lens of the job seeker. What are they going to want, and what's going to be what is going to serve them, where it's going to be easy, they're going to want to use it, and we need to be aware of that as recruiters.
I think a few things like daily pay. That's a new thing that's come about in the last couple of years, is paying your employees each day.
Yeah,
having to wait a week in time, little things like that, and make that employee experience better is something that I've seen work. I mean, I think you're going to see, particularly in the hourly space and blue collar space, right? Imagine getting paid every day for the job you do. That's just immediate gratification right there, and that's something that you could take a look at too.
Especially we do a lot of seasonal businesses too, window cleaning, but also we have a lot of clients that hang Christmas lights. You wouldn't believe how that industry is taking off. It's just mind-boggling. There's clients we have that do $2 million in lights in a couple months, and that's all they do all year round. Wow. 4-month business, and that's it. Some will expand into, event lighting for weddings or so on, more commercial municipality things. But the Christmas light hanging industry has absolutely exploded.
That's interesting. Yeah, that would be like a great job for like a landscape guy who works in the summer. Yep. He's working in the winter, right? There's a good transition right there.
Exactly. So let's hop into Google, because I think yes, I baited that a little bit with some promo, and we're waiting. Too many people waiting around for it. I want to preface this by saying it's really a gray area still, unless you know something that I don't know, which is very possible and likely. Anything I've looked up on Google is, one, they don't necessarily come out and say, hey, here's a bunch of videos on what we're up to, and this is what it's going to look like and how it's going to work. It's always this alpha phase of testing, and then maybe we'll move into a beta phase, and then that might change and look completely different in a year. And so what I've seen is a carousel looking thing on top. When you act like a job seeker and look for a job, there's this little carousel thing, and most of my audience knows about Google for Jobs and the 3 stack, so it's different than that. This is actually a monetized thing. Now, what I'm the gray area to me is I don't necessarily see Google saying, click here, pay us money, and we will get your job up on our little platform here, like an Indeed does or a ZipRecruiter does. It looks like I see LinkedIn involved in this a little bit all over the place when I look at where they're scraping this from and where they're picking this up from. All these different gray areas. So I'm trying to understand it a little bit better. And maybe I'm trying to understand something that's not quite understandable yet. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Google is a black box right now. No one knows what's coming out of that thing, what's going on inside there. I've heard a few things about Google for Jobs, which I'll tell your audience today. First of all, Google for Jobs has been around since about 2017 when the company first launched it. They basically allowed any job boards or employers to connect their job listings to their index for free. Last year, news came out that they're testing sponsored job ads, and you showed me a little video, Shawn, that you took. When did you record that video, by the way?
I think it was yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay, I did the same search today. Could not
Yep,
get the results back.
exactly.
So they are testing some kind of alpha, right? And they're only testing with a couple of big players like LinkedIn. I think ZipRecruiter. I'm not sure if Indeed is involved at all. That's it right now. That's all I know as far as the alpha test goes. Supposedly it's going to come out maybe end of year 2024. Those are some of the rumors I've heard. Whether or not, I'm really curious how they're going to roll it out too, because ideally I'd love to see where anybody from the small business up to the big job board can go and click and buy a sponsored ad on Google for Jobs.
Yeah,
that would make the most sense. That's the biggest way they can make money on this thing, right?
yeah,
Open it to everybody. To do that, they're going to have some kind of interface to do that with. And right now, you can go buy a keyword ad on Google Ads, but that platform is extremely complex to use for the average small business person. Even I have trouble using that thing. I speak tech. I am techie. So they have to have a really dead simple, easy way of sponsoring a job. I maybe they're building that now. I don't know, but it's going to be really curious to see how they roll this out. My gut feeling says they're going to basically just use the big job boards in the beginning,
yeah,
and then they're going to say, so, we're going to build some kind of interface at some point. But they don't typically do that for like little verticals like this. I mean,
right.
when's the last time they built an ad only vertical or site for a certain industry? They've never done that before, so that's not in their history. So that's why I'm really curious. I don't know how much their heart is into it, to Shawn. With ChatGPT now, that's taking a lot of focus away from other stuff at Google. So I don't know how serious they are about Google for Jobs too.
Right.
They've never come out and said anything about it. We're just seeing these little snapshots of people, seeing something on Google and taking a screenshot of it and getting all excited, but they've never come out and said they're going to do this thing. So there's still a lot to be determined here as far as what happens with these sponsored job ads. So
yeah. I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and I brought one up that I was able to bring up, and I'll just to show the audience here, hopefully. So I'm in Google here, and I put in the words cleaning jobs near Chesterland, Ohio. So cleaning jobs near Chesterland, Ohio. Can you see my screen, Chris?
Yep.
So
You got six, it's five.
Yep.
5 sponsored jobs there on top of,
and this is what pops up, this little
jobs
carousel here. So there's probably 6 or 7 because it's got the little arrow here. You can go back.
Oh, there's some companies in there too, besides Indeed and LinkedIn. I see.
Exactly. I saw some little ones here, but the vast majority, when I did this a number of times, is LinkedIn showing up in here.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I haven't refreshed this or changed it, because when I do, like you said, it goes away.
Oh, so you save the tab open?
Yeah, so I saved the tab open so I'd be able to show it, and I've had it open since yesterday. Now, when I've done it elsewhere on a different tab or a different window, it took a while to show up, but it would show up. So I don't know if I have to, if a user has to be set up in the labor market geographically that it's in, and it will pop up, and maybe you're in Connecticut, so it's not going to pop up those certain.
It should be based on your keywords that you type in there. So
I would think so. I would think so.
Unless they're doing some additional filtering based on your IP address or something. I don't know.
So what's your initial thought on this when we look at it and go, okay, I can't click anywhere as a business or a recruiting company. This is actually pulling it from LinkedIn and different smaller, they may not be smaller, but I know different areas. Now, when I go up here, I can click on this, and it's, why are these ads showing up?
Okay, see, they're working with Appcast.
Big time.
Yep. Appcast, Indeed, and LinkedIn right there. That's why the Appcast redistributes jobs for companies. And so they're just taking the Appcast feed there. And it looks like Appcast is part of the alpha here. Right.
Yep.
So
that's
interesting to note. And this interface here is, it's going to look worse on mobile because you have much less space on mobile. So I don't know how good it's going to be on mobile user experiences. You're showing 5 jobs here on the desktop.
Right.
I think on mobile, I've seen 2 jobs with a search like this.
Yeah.
It just clues you. I mean, look at, you've got the sponsor jobs there, then you got the regular Google for Jobs listings below that.
Right.
It's just a
Right.
lot of data on one page. It's not the
Yeah.
most clean interface.
And
But
they're
yeah,
normally,
ideally there should be I would like to see a button there, sponsor your job right here,
yeah. Yeah. And
go
I've
off and
looked
be able to
into it.
do that.
I'm going to obviously continue to look into it. If you find anything out, which you always do, every so often I'll shoot you an email if you don't mind, Chris, and just kind of say, hey, have you found anything? Are you seeing anything or hearing anything? Because our audience sure, would benefit hopefully from something like this. I don't know if this means, should we be getting on LinkedIn and advertising jobs so that it shows? I don't think we're
Well, so
there
first of
yet.
all, I don't think cleaning jobs belong on LinkedIn.
Right.
There's no cleaning person who's on LinkedIn looking for work today. So I wouldn't put that type of job on there. It's really interesting how those jobs are showing up, though. I can't imagine they're getting many applications through LinkedIn, right?
Right. Right.
But you could use Napcast or Indeed in that case. But that's
Tell me a little bit more about Appcast that you know of. I just looked into it a little bit last night and then got interrupted.
It's a programmatic job advertising company. So what they do is they help employers distribute their jobs to a bunch of different job boards at once.
Yeah.
So when you give them they take a feed of your job listings from your ATS or hiring software on your career site. They index that feed of jobs. They check it every night, so they get the new ones on and take the old ones off. And then they put them into they give that feed to a bunch of job boards like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Jobcase, a bunch of other job boards you never heard of. And they basically drive traffic to those jobs, and they charge you on a per click basis. So they're CPC, unlike Google, unlike how Indeed used to be, right? They're truly just CPC. You pay anywhere from like 50 cents to a couple of dollars per click. They also have a paper application model as well, but PPC is the main way they make money.
Okay.
And they just charge you a monthly budget for that, monthly fee, and off you go. You get whatever you get as far as, basically you give them a budget. And you say, okay, I've got $5,000 a month. I can spend, take that money and distribute it to the different job boards and send me traffic to my listings on my career sites. What they do.
Okay. What would you think of the possibility of if I was to get some momentum on a real specific cleaning industry, whether it's window cleaner, house cleaner, pressure washing, soft washing, roof cleaning, concrete cleaning type of job board? Is that's sort of the micro niche I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Job boards evolution has been into these really micro niche places. Yeah.
So go buy cleaningjobs.com. It's available right now. You can buy it. It probably costs you a few grand. You can throw a job board on there, Shawn. Drive traffic to it with internet marketing ads, and over time, it's going to take a year or two to really gain some traction. But
right,
you spend the time marketing it, people will come, and that's a great domain name. People will type that in just looking for work as a called type in traffic, like cleaningjobs.com. It's a common domain name. Someone might type into Google, right? You'll get automatic traffic just because you have cleaningjobs.com, for example. So I've seen that before with niches with a good keyword, a good domain name like that.
And with job boards and your knowledge of job boards and some of the turnkey platforms that you can create your own job board relatively quickly and much easier than years past. Is there any type of backfilling and any type of integrations amongst different job boards that want to work with one another? Talk a little bit about that, because I'm really interested in this.
Yeah. So like, for instance, my favorite job board software is called Smart Job Board. And they have a couple integrations with backfill inside of there. So from day one, you can launch with things. And they actually have a backfill with Appcast. So I can go in there and search for every job with the word cleaning in the job title, for example, and display that on my job board from day one. Now, there's cons and pros to that. The pro is I get content, I get job listings for my job seekers to look at. But the con is when you click apply, you get redirected to where that job lives. It's all about aggregation, right? So it's the same way Indeed works, is how the backfill works. And they have kind of a secondary backfill too, with like a Tauru or ZipRecruiter, and those jobs just appear in the search results when you do a keyword search. As soon as you click the search result, you get redirected immediately, and that's called secondary backfill. But yeah, you can immediately stuff your job board with listings in there from reputable employers out there from day one using a tool like that.
Okay.
And it makes it easy. Jobs are everywhere, and then most of the softwares make it easy to do something like that.
Yeah. And so the tough part of the equation, of course, is getting the candidates to go to that job board.
Exactly. That's the hard part. Jobs are easy to find
Yeah.
because they're everywhere. What's hard to get are the candidates. And that just takes effort and marketing and rinse and repeat over time. And slowly and surely you can build a job community on there.
Yep. A lot of content, a lot of branding, like you said, you've touched on that a number of times. So, yeah, I'm thinking of maybe partnering up with a couple of other people that are in the industries and thinking about putting something together for that. And of course, you've got resume searching and resumes you can do on these job boards, and just anything you really that
job alerts. Yep, you can even have resume alerts too for the employer side. Yeah.
Is there any way to I don't know how you would so we've got lists of and candidates by the thousands because we're a recruiting company.
Yep.
So we've got the ability to reach out to those people via email. And I'm thinking a good way to possibly do that isn't, hey, we own a job board now, go here, because that's not going to do.
Yeah, you want to market to them and say, hey, we have a job board now, come put a resume on. You want to make it opt-in, of course. You don't want to put the resume on there automatically. You want them to do it.
What do you think about in this? I'm just kind of tossing things around. I haven't focused in on this and tightened any of this up, but there must be a pretty decent amount of value to have a small business that wants to find a good employee or two or more and have a job board, but also have sort of a pre-training type of thing, or you're already a certified trained window cleaner. And then that has to be worth a lot more than somebody that doesn't know a thing about window cleaning and safety and some. I don't know if there's any value in that or not, though. I don't.
I mean, you could create a course, I guess, an online course, but for window cleaning, you might need to do some in-person training. I would think, but you can certainly just kind of virtual course to just get them prepped, I guess, for a type of job like that. Sure, yeah. I've seen like a CNA job board do that. Certified nursing assistant job board had some kind of a certification course attached to their job board at one point.
Right. And every association has that type of thing for your employees and so on. So, all right, we're coming up against the hour, and so the good news about Google is something's happening. The bad news is nobody knows what the hell it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Google was at the HR Tech Conference in 2017, and we've never seen them since. So at any events, and
I saw that they had a 2023 marketing live event, and I got a whisper that within that 2 or 3 hour of on YouTube that I caught, that there's possibility that they had a speaker about some of the recruiting stuff. So
I'd like to meet them.
Yeah.
If you're listening, please contact me so I can get some more.
I will. Now I got to hire my 15-year-old son to look through that for me to make sure that he sees it, because I'm not going to sit through 3 hours of marketing video.
Yep.
So, all right, Chris, I appreciate you hopping on. We'll be back, everybody. If you got any questions about Google, I don't have a lot of answers. I did want, though, to let the audience know that, even in its infancy stage here, that we're all over it. We're trying to figure this out. I'll be in touch with Chris, and if anybody will be able to figure it out and understand it, he will. And that's why we bring the expertise to you. Anybody that's thinking about a job board, he is the expert in the industry. And Chris has got all kinds of different turnkey things. He's got ebooks. What else do you have, Chris, if somebody was interested?
Yeah, jobboardsecrets.com. You can get some ebooks there. You can join my community as well if you want to access some of the private content I've written around that. But I have a YouTube channel as well. You can find me on both RegTech Media and Job Board Secrets are both on YouTube. So lots of free stuff.
What's the RecTech Media? Tell me a little bit more about that.
That's just where I do my recruiting technology writings and consulting from. And it's kind of where I blog about recruiting technology overall.
Excellent. All right, let's do this. Let's do that. I'll be on 8 p.m. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, hire, lead, and chill. I will also, I don't know if we're having Turfs Up Radio Wednesday or not, tomorrow or not. I'll let you know because there's some things going on. Dan, the host, has been on vacation, so I don't know what's going on, but if it is, we'll let you know. And everybody, I appreciate it. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. I'm going to let you go make something happen out there, and I appreciate it.